What is up, everybody? Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner and 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I host the only online program in the world that is for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Care and also co-sponsored by DAD, Central Canada's National Fatherhood Organization. And finally, one of the other things I do is I am the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative, which is a multimedia not-for-profit that showcases Blacks in the diaspora that are doing their thing in food, wine, and travel. And as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored. Magnet for Miracles, solution for someone's problem. We're broadcasting live on June 20th, which is Father's Day, and most Sundays at this time, around 5 p.m. Eastern time, we do Black Canada Talking, which is a live online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are of importance today. And you know what we're doing today. We're having a talk about fatherhood, specifically Black fatherhood. And I have 3 Black fathers from my community that are going to be joining us today during this conversation. So I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say. They all are going to just help amplify what the world of Black fatherhood is all about. So I'm going to introduce them one at a time. First off, I'm going to bring in a gentleman who I've known for, he's told me now almost 30 years, Jonathan Shaw. What is up, Jonathan Shaw?
How you doing? Everything good?
You know what? Too blessed to be stressed. How about yourself?
Same thing. I can't complain.
Little background on yourself, Juiceman?
Okay. DJ, on-air host for Indigenous radio station 106.5 in Toronto, creative director for Element FM, both in Toronto and Ottawa, image voice of God, many commercial type of thing, and daddy, father of 3 and godfather to 17 godchildren.
Whoa.
So that's 20 altogether. That's big 20.
Wonderful.
Big brother, big sister, co-chair, all the other stuff. Yeah, I just that's why I say international man of mystery. I just do everything.
Yeah. And big stealer.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have a truly international conversation here because we have gentlemen from Canada and the U.S. But next up from the Canada side, Greg Frankson. He has been on a number of my conversations recently, but he definitely wanted to get involved in this one. Greg, good afternoon. Happy Father's Day. Could you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, no, 100%. My name is Greg Frankson. I'm also known as Ritalin. I'm an award-winning spoken word artist, a published author, as well as a community activist, and a person who has been working for the last 30 years to advance the cause of Black people in Canada. I'm currently editing an anthology of poets, which is called Africanthology, Perspectives of Black Canadian Poets, which is due to be released in February 2022. And I'm also starting a not-for-profit called Africanthology Canada in order to archive, amplify, share, and teach about the impact of Black Canadians on the national culture. So among many of the things that I do, I also run a business called Voice Share Inc., which is an effective communication and inclusive leadership company.
Wonderful. Thank you for taking the time to be here. And from down south, exactly from Milwaukee, they had a big win last night. Finally, their basketball team has broken a barrier. Melanated Daddy, aka Joshua, I've had the honor and pleasure to get to know him and his family very well over the last few weeks, and seeing this gentleman manifest dreams of others, especially Black fathers. So really happy to have you here today, Joshua. What is up? Share a little bit about us with our wonderful audience.
My brother, it's always an honor. Joshua Zawadi, aka Melanated Daddy. I'm a blogger about fatherhood, both bio and bonus. I am the owner and operator of Dad Doula, a doula service for non-birthing partners to help them be advocates, to be intentional, and to be present with their partners or with the mother for all 4 trimesters. I'm a dad, 2 bio, 2 bonus. I am a husband. I am a fear of God. I have 1,000 different titles. For today, it's Father's Day, so I'm a daddy.
Wonderful.
That's it.
Fantastic. Great to have all of you here today. So we're just going to chop it up and like have a round table about Black fatherhood. So I'm going to make it very easy with the first question. It's Father's Day. What are your thoughts about being a Black father today, Father's Day 2021? Who wants to start off?
You know I don't shy from talking. So.
Yes, introvert.
Introverted, yes. Being a Black father today, my lens is different, and soon Dr. Vibe will be posting a webinar that we did yesterday. But I spoke about being a father who was fatherless as a child. So today is very intentional for me because I have what I call a family of choice. My bonus children understand that they don't have to choose me. But what they do is they choose me every day. So every day for me is Father's Day because my bonus kids and my bio kids are nuts about me, and it feels great. But for the overall theme of fatherhood is Father's Day for a Black father is great. It's concerning in moments, but it's a great thing because as fathers, we get the ability to not just mentor and guide our own children, but the community of children and the community of people who look to us as babas or fathers. But at the same token, as a Black father, it comes with some concerns. It comes with some fears. It comes with some moments where I'm hoping and praying that the lessons that I'm teaching stick to make sure that they come home at night. So it's a double-headed sword. It's a beautiful day to have it today, but at the same token, we also understand as Black fathers that our first objective is to protect so that they come home. But so yeah, that's my point of view on it.
All right. Who wants to follow up on that?
Well, I could jump in, I guess. My experience of fatherhood is a little different. I too grew up without my dad. He came around later in my adulthood, and we now have a very different relationship. But in the meantime, I ended up having 3 girls of my own, none of whom live with me. My eldest is in university. My 2 youngest don't even live in the same city as me. And then I also have the children who came as part of the package with my fiance. So she has 2 kids of her own. So bonus children, as Melanated Daddy might refer. And so I have this multifaceted and complex relationship with the concept of fatherhood. I look at it as, what can I do in order to pass on whatever lessons in whatever way that I can, not being resident with my own children on a day-to-day basis, and being resident 50% of the time with my partner's children, and still continuing to grapple with my own issues that were generated during my childhood when my dad was not present, and continuing to reckon with the implications of that, even as he and I have become closer and closer, the older the both of us have gotten. So I come to it in a very different place. And I'm interested to see, what I can share and learn from the others on the panel today to see where this goes.
Juiceman?
Fatherhood for a Black father in is what I would call complex. It's very complex because we were not given a guidebook in which to parent. A lot of things that happened in the generations before us, we've had to throw out. We've had to just totally rewrite the books, rewrite the novel, rewrite and do everything again. As you can see in the background, that's a picture of my first child being born. And over the last 18 years in maneuvering how I parent, I call one of 3. And then there's 2 of 3, and there's 3 of 3. And now I also have to deal with my father, which is another totally complex dynamic. And also dealing with the factor is that I now have a child who is, has come out and and now as a member of the LGBTQ community. So it's been very complex. It's been very interesting having to relearn certain things and unlearn other things. Also dealing with my father, who's 86 years old, finally coming to grips and saying to my father face to face this year and saying, as of October 4th of 2021, I am officially retired. I'll leave it there for now.
Powerful stuff, gentlemen, that we've opened up with. Really, really, really interesting stuff. Joshua, one of the things you said, and all you said stuff that I'm praying that we get to through this conversation. You said Black fatherhood is concerning. Some areas of Black fatherhood are concerning. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? And maybe Greg and Jonathan can add on.
The climate of which the country and the times that we are in, our children are not seen as children in a lot of instances. They're seen as targets. They're seen as everything but children. And I have 3 girls and 1 boy, and I'm often told how cute they are until my 4-year-old son turns 10, and now he's looked upon as something else. So as fatherhood, I'm often trying to be the peace and the joy for my children at all times, because I understand outside of my house that may not be the case. So I have to make sure that I'm setting an ecosystem around them to cultivate just being children, just being carefree, just being joyous, and just being children. Because as soon as they leave my house and the world sees them, they're judged and labeled differently than what I want them labeled and judged. So Black fatherhood in this moment, in this time frame that we're in, is a bit concerning. Because outside of my reach, I have to hope and pray that what I've taught you and what I've given you in this house can carry through outside this house.
Thank you for sharing on that, Josh. So for Greg and Jonathan, you're not in the environment with your kids all the time. So how does what Joshua just said impact your thoughts, or how would you like to respond to that?
I think the hardest thing as a father who's not spending 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with your children is I don't have that peace when I go to sleep at night. When you're a father, it doesn't matter what time of night you come in. We do a ritual that I don't know where we learned it. I don't know who taught it to us, but we come into the house. We say, thank God for coming in. And we walk to each of our child's room. And we open up the door and we look at that child. And all we want to hear is that child breathing. Whether it's snoring, whatever, we want to just, sometimes we may lay hands on that child in the sense of, praying over that child. We may just look, to see if there's something new, if it's a newborn or whatever the case would be. But we look at that child and we're like, we just want to hear them breathe. And once they start breathing, then we can go into our room, we can kiss our girlfriend, our wives, and we can go to sleep. When my children are not in my care, I can't sleep the way I would normally sleep. I'm always listening for the phone. I'm always listening to make sure that everything is okay. I will text them. I will say, hey, Daddy loves you. And that's something that I do every day. I want to make sure that my children know every single day that their father is there and loves them. As I said, my oldest child has come out and said, I want to be a boy, and having to learn how to deal with that. It was really hard I won't say it was hard. I won't say it was really hard. No. It was really hard to finally hear him speak about some of the things that were bothering him, that he felt that he could not come to me and talk to me about. And I have never told my child that they cannot come and talk to me. but there is a fear, being as though, you know, I am of Jamaican background, and we don't necessarily are the poster children for LGBTQ. But and I've heard from many different transgender people from the gay and lesbian community that they've never seen a guy like me who's really interested in wanting to learn about their child. Usually children come out and tell their fathers that they're gay or lesbian or whatever, and the father just, you know, says, well, hey, you can't be that way in my house, you know, come out, or, you know what I mean, I disown you, or I, you know, whatever. And again, that picture on the wall there reminds me of all the days before, at the time she was born, now Tahiti, of the struggles that, you know, the times where I prayed to God, got down on my hands and knees and said, God, I just want one. And now I have three. I never said to God, I want a straight child. I never said to God, you know, anything more than I said, I just give me a healthy child, you know, boy or girl, you know what I mean? And that's it.
All right.
If
Greg?
I could, Dr. Val, I just want to thank Brother Jonathan for that, just because it's taboo for Black fathers to support our children regardless, right? The assumption is, right, that the Black fall is going to turn the moment you don't do something he wants you to do. When in reality, the truth of the matter is, I have three girls and one boy, and all four could come and say, Daddy, I'm gay, I'm whatever, and it's, baby, I love you regardless, so I don't care.
Exactly.
So thank you for being a walking example and a talking example for what other men who should see this should be doing. So with that, I'm complete.
Greg?
Well, I think it's interesting this topic has come up because, you know, these are the kinds of conversations that I am having with my 12-year-old. And so we get on the phone, you know, or text, you know, in between her bouts of playing Roblox or whatever it is that she's doing with her friends. And, you know, she's very open about, you know, the way that she feels about herself and about her sexuality, even at a very young age. And, you know, she's going to figure out what she needs to figure out. I mean, she has already, you know, kind of declared that she is queer, and that's okay. You know, I look at her, she's incredibly intelligent. She's you know, she's beautiful. She is you know, she's very smart, you know, because being intelligent and being smart are two different things. She's sassy. She's got a sharp tongue, which is good, except when it's directed at me. And you know, but she's a great kid. I love hanging out with her. She's very artistic. She likes to draw. She's getting into animation, which I'm encouraging, because Lord knows if you can do something that's tech-based in this world and do it and love it, then by all means pursue it. And that's just where you end up. You just embrace the child as he or she happens to be, or he or she or they happen to be. And you know, when people say, well, she's too young to be able to have these ideas, too young to know this, I'm like, you know, when I kissed that first girl in the sandbox when I was 5 years old, I knew exactly what I was doing. You know, we're not too young to understand our own likes, loves, dislikes, passions, opinions, and viewpoints and perspectives. We know these things from a very early age, and I think it's on us as parents, it's on us as fathers to embrace the child wherever they land, because, you know, that's our role, is to support whatever they think. And so I do that with my youngest child. I'm working to be a place where she can come and speak to me, even in the situation where I don't spend that much time with her, and that the pandemic has kept us separated because we don't live in the same city. Even through that, you know, I'm doing what I can in order to keep those doors open, to keep the door of love and warmth and and nurturing open, and to keep the lines of communication open as well.
Wonderful. I don't know if I want to take a break now or bring up this subject after the break. You know what? Let's bring it up now. The whole area of the family law system and Black fathers. I know that Greg and Jonathan, you've probably had some involvement in it. I don't know if you have, Joshua, but let's be real here. Yeah, I know it's Father's Day, but it is a part of some of the challenges that many Black fathers face dealing with the family law system. What thoughts, experiences that you'd like to share with our audience when it comes to Black fatherhood and dealing with family law system?
Well, all right. Well, let me jump in then. You know, I've made my first entry into the family law system. Good God, when I got divorced, and my eldest daughter was a toddler. So now we're talking almost 20 years ago was my first experience of that, and I've been going through different sorts of systemic issues ever since. You know, it's infuriating that that the system is not set up to default to a joint custody situation in which both parents are treated as the equals that they are by biology and by God, and why the law treats men differently from women in that respect is a complete mystery to me. And that the ingrained biases towards whichever parent happens to have the child the majority of the time, which in most cases is the mother, is a kind of it's a kind of emotional violence, a state-sanctioned emotional violence that is made all the worse when the sexism and racism are layered on top of it to explode a man's psychological, emotional, and spiritual ability, desire, capacity, and motivation to stay on the issue and to stay on point, to be present both for himself and for his child or children throughout such a searing and emotional and devastating process as the one that is dished out, certainly within the Ontario family law system, the one that I experienced, but certainly I have heard has been the situation all across North America.
Who wants to add on to that? Go ahead, Juice.
Every single man who has ever talked about the Family Responsibilities Office or family law in Ontario has the exact same story. There is no, I mean, I just went through it the other day where I got a letter saying, hey, you know, Mr. Shaw, you need to pay this amount of money, blah, 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 and whatever the case may be. And I'm like, okay. And if you want an extension, or let's say for a lot of us men, I haven't DJ'd in 18 months. So the money that I would normally make, it's not there. But we have to live. We have to do whatever. If we do not pay this money, wages get garnished, EI, this, that, whatever, whatever. And I mean, obviously, your children come first. There is no doubt about it. But there is no wiggle room. And if you even try to wiggle room, like I tried to do, you basically have to go and get your income tax statements. You have to then get, your last tax returns done. You have to give them 3-4 months of pay stubs, your bank this, your this, that, whatever, da 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 da. And most men just say, let me just pay it and done, or let me borrow the money or do whatever, and then basically put yourself even more behind the ball. But it's not even the money aspect of things. It's just the whole aspect of what you're looked upon like in the system. Once you're in the system, it looks like they always just look at you as a deadbeat. And you're not a deadbeat, by no stroke of the imagination. There's men out there who are doing for their children as best as they can, seeing their child every day, putting them in sports, doing this, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But if you owe 1 penny to Family Responsibilities Office, you're a deadbeat. If you try to change the situation, which, you know, I mean, whatever, you can't. You got to fill out a book that looks like this. And that's just the way it is. And that's just the system. And unfortunately, the way the system is set up, they want you to go through that system. They don't want you to just, you know, be able to have a harmonious relationship with your ex and be able to say, hey, okay, cool, I'm coming by this day, whatever, see the kid, you know, here's your money, here's whatever, let's do things jointly together, whatever the case may be. It doesn't work like that. You know, if I buy a whole bunch of clothes on top of what I give for child support, you then have to go buy another set of clothes for yourself in your dwelling. So it's like you're paying twice, or like doing everything twice. And the system is not set up as Greg said, for a harmonious situation. They say that it's in the best interest of the child, but is the best interest of the child where you're not able to do for the child.
All right, thank you. Josh?
I come from a slightly different lens, and it's not my fault, but I do. Number one, my oldest child, which is Kalani, the 8-year-old, I was on child support for her for maybe 3-4 years. Now we have 50-50 custody. She's in my house most of the time here in Milwaukee, and then we'll go to Nashville to see her mom whenever we dictate that time is, you know, the time to go. I got to be honest, right? I hear what both these brothers are saying, and I know a lot of brothers who are in the same pool or situation as them. But then I also, because of the work that I do, see the side of the brother who just doesn't want to do his job. And so because he doesn't want to do his job and he doesn't want to support his kids, he puts himself in this position and then wants to complain about it later. When in reality, you had the opportunity to stay from this position and you couldn't man up and handle your business. So I see both sides, right? I understand there's two sides to every coin. I get it. My issue is when the system is abused. And then that's a different conversation. When we have people in the system because the mother of their child got upset because the relationship ended, even though you know and I know I'm already financially taking care of everything for this child, now we have a different conversation. For the ones who just avoid doing their job, avoid taking care of their kids, avoid making sure the mother of the child doesn't have to put that burden alone, you kind of put this on yourself, my brother. But for the ones who are doing the job and still have to go through the loopholes to do the job, guess what? I hear you. It's wrong. I get it. So I see both sides of the coin. I once was in the court. Now I no longer have to worry about it. But I get both sides.
All right. Anyone wanting to add?
Me.
Go ahead.
All I'll just say is this, right? I don't know how it is in the States. Mm-hmm. I know how it is here. And here, you could be paid every single month on time. And all they need to do is pick up the phone and say, I want it to come off of his paycheck. And blam, you have no way of stopping that. You have no way of telling them whatever. All you do is get a tap on your shoulder from the person in HR, and all of a sudden that money gets taken away from you. And as I said, it's not the money issue that's the issue for me. It's the conversations that happen. It's the factor is that you cannot have those conversations with anybody. Like, again, the Family Responsibility Office, I don't know if you've dealt with them, Greg, but I remember a guy called me on the phone back in February, and I said to him, you're the first phone call that I've received in 11 years. I have never received a phone call from your office on anything. All I've ever received is a letter saying how much money I got to pay, right? Or there's been an overage, or we have not, your employer, blase, has, not given us the right amount of money. But in 11 years, you have never once called me to ask me not one question. All you've ever asked me is how much money, or basically take money away from me. Not money away from, in that regard. You know what I mean? And if I've had that conversation with my ex and said, hey, I was paying you on time, why this? You could stop this tomorrow if you wanted to, and I could just give you the cash. But no, they wanted to go through that. There was no issue before. All of a sudden, whatever. And I mean, it's one of those situations that I kind of say to myself, well, at least you know what? It's not forever, because your children do get older. And when they finally do finish with that system and I'm able to come out of it, I'm going to be like another gentleman who's been on the Dr. Vibe show, Henri, who's been able to, take a world tour. I mean, he's part of a Tribe Called Quest. You know what I mean? Because straight up, that's all. Because he's been everywhere. From he gave his ex the money and said, "Here you go, my man's." You see my man in every picture, like this now. And you think about that from a standpoint of just mental health. We all, we are fathers who are trying. And again, for the brothers who ain't doing crap, throw the book at them. But believe it or not, for whatever reason, those guys, they get a free pass. I don't know what it is, they get a free pass. But for the guys who really want to be there for their children, like how you feel? Like, seriously, I went to my daughter's house, and my son's house for their birthday. You're there, you buy them stuff, whatever, you take pictures, you're there. The mother of the child is sitting there, whatever, blah, 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 whatever. And then the next day you get a phone call from Fro like, hey, you need to pay more money. Dude, I was just at the house yesterday. What happened? Like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? And this happens over and over again. You know what I mean? Your birthday, you get served with papers. Why? Why? I don't understand. Again, if this is in the best interest of the children, then let it be about the children.
Can I jump in here for a second? I'll tell you one story about my experience with the Ontario family law system. So I have been going back and forth with the mother of my middle daughter for years. It has been a difficult struggle. This woman is very, very confrontational and has used the system in the first instance to try to hurt me, and then went back into the system in order to drag out the process as long as possible until my daughter was old enough to go into court and say that she didn't want to see me anymore, while the mother was busily engaged in alienating behavior, and had even at one point withheld all access for 18 months and destroyed the relationship that I was building with my daughter in the process. So then you have the court appointed, the office of the children's lawyer representative going back and forth, doing interviews with everybody involved. I got a report from the office of the children's lawyer on Christmas Eve, emailed to me to tell me that they were siding with the mother, and that because I had told this representative that I was not 100% clear on what the possible steps could be done to resolve the alienation issue besides going to counseling and whatever, and asked him for his opinion because I was at a loss in terms of process and structures, what I could actually access in order to do something actively to resolve that issue. I received in this report that because I didn't have any suggestions on how to deal with this situation, that it was a clear indication that I was not interested in being an active father. And this was what I got in my report on Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas, Greg. And these are the types of things that I hear about constantly within the system. You try to go through the proper processes, you participate fully and in good faith, And then you have the entire thing thrown back in your face, and you're told that you are irresponsible, that you are not capable, and that you are actually actively seeking to abandon the situation, even though I'd been in court for a decade trying to get proper access to my daughter, which made absolutely no sense. But that's the situation that we often find ourselves in. And I guarantee you that if I was not a Black man, that would not be the situation that I was facing in that scenario.
Okay. Before we go to break, Josh, anything you want to add before we move on to our break?
My heart breaks to hear these kind of situations. Dr. Vibe, I reached out to you not too long ago, and you gave me advice about a similar situation like this with a brother reaching out. In the States, I've heard of these things going on too. I know quite a few brothers who've gone through it. I can consider myself one of the lucky ones. We handled ours outside of court, and then we went to court with an already pre-approved condition of what we were going to do. So it worked out, right? But in often cases, that's not the case. I'll just let both you brothers know I'm praying that both of your situations end favorably for both of you. If there's anything that I go, I'm not in Canada, so there's not much I can do, but I know Dr. Vibe has resources. So if there's anything that you need, please let us know, and we'll see what we can pull together. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, you know what? It's a universal thing, and I think a lot of times we think that what we need to do is sometimes just support. Is the simplest and sometimes the most effective thing, you know. And I'll be open here. I know Jonathan won't mind, but there's many times Jonathan will call me, and a lot of times I know there's support, but I know that in his heart he just wants me to hear him out, and he has me whenever he wants. And all three of you know, and the other people know here, I am here for you, you know. So, and I know that sometimes you just need to, you're screaming, you just want to let it out. And I think that baseline is one of the easiest things we can do to make things go forward. Gentlemen,
stress will kill you. Stress will kill you. Stress will kill you.
Absolutely. And we have a question here. So okay. You know what? We'll handle the questions on the other. We're going to give a break because it seems that we've touched on a nerve with our audience in regards to this conversation piece. So we'll answer a question from the audience when we come back, and then we're going to get into our next conversation piece, having the gentlemen answer this question. What is one thing any one of your children has taught you that has helped you be better? So we're going to go to a break. We'll come back. We'll handle this question about the court system. Then we'll get into that question. So it is Black Canada Talking on June 20th, live broadcasting with Jonathan Shaw, Greg Frankson, and Mr. Joshua Zawadi. And we are going to be back in just a moment. Hold tight. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, and it is Black Canada Talking time. Black Canada Talking is a live online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes on stories, POVs that are of importance to them, or we showcase Black Canadians who are doing their thing.
The real aspect of what goes on behind the walls or behind the fence is a totally different persona and a totally different picture.
There was just a big sense of relief when we finally got there.
We have to realize that everything we do is going to have an impact on probably a lot of people we don't even know.
One of the mandates of the CBC is to reflect Canada back to itself.
Not a lot of sustainable long-term movement that will effect economic change.
God bless, peace well, keep the faith, and walk good. Okay, we are back and having a great conversation about Black fatherhood on Father's Day, June 20th, 2021. And got a question here from the audience, and I'm just going to put it up right now, from Sarah, saying, how do the courts justify condoning this alienation while going after fathers? So, Greg, you're probably best. John will be back with us in just a moment. What is your response to that? You're on mute, Greg.
So, at least from my own personal experience, how courts justify the alienation, they don't justify the alienation. What they do is they say that the alienation is unjustifiable, but then do absolutely nothing to correct it or to deal with it in any constructive way. Because what ends up happening is this sensation of we need to deal with the child where they are. So the alienation process happens over a particular time period, and then you're able to finally get the court to address it a year later. They're like, well, that happened a year ago. Where are we with the kid today? And what are the needs and concerns and whatnot of the child today? And so when you bring up, but wait a minute, we had all of this other stuff that's been happening for like 3-4 years that we finally started to address a year ago. We finally at the spot now today where we're dealing with that. No, we're talking about what is in the best interest of the child today. So you don't ever actually get to deal with or address the situation that happened previously. You then have to deal with the situation that's happening today, which generally speaking is in that situation not going to favor you because you've already been spending all of this time, effort, and expense and treasure in getting that process to that point. So by now, you're trying to make sure that you're paying for your legal costs as well as, your child support, as well as your own regular life. So you're doing all of these things in order to try to keep up financially. For me, because my daughters are in Ottawa and I live in Toronto, I also have to physically go back and forth to attend court in Ottawa anytime any of these issues come up. And I have to send documentation by process servers to be served onto the parties and or at the courthouse, which adds additional costs to me for any of this sort of basic thing. And then at the end of the day, then they're turning around to me and they're saying, well, what are you doing with your child support? We're going to send this to the FRO. We got to make sure that this is that you're taking care of your responsibility. They're not interested in the fact that that this other conduct has gone on that has placed you in this particular situation. They can measure the dollars and cents. They can't measure that emotional and spiritual trauma that's being inflicted upon you. You can't bring a document that's verified by the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce that says this is what the impact of this individual's behavior has been upon me and the resultant trickle-down effect that I'm certain is also impacting on my child. You can't bring in material evidence to show that devastation that's happening. But we can certainly come in and say, well, you know what? This person is actually, trying to hide income, or this person is not keeping up with their payment, or this person should be paying this extra money for extracurriculars that I've never sent any receipts for, but I want reimbursement for. So you can, you can bring paperwork for that kind of stuff. So that's what ends up happening, is that the intangible impact that you're bringing to the court will only take into consideration within the prism of what's happening in the current context. But this person can bring in documentation about financial or special expenses or whatever else that goes back a decade that the court will look at and ding you for. So the system is inherently unequal in that respect.
Okay. Jonathan, I'll have you answer this question also, and then we'll move on to our next conversation piece. And the question is from Sarah, saying, how do the courts justify condoning this alienation while going after fathers for child support?
I'll basically use something that Chris Rock said in his last special. People got dressed today to take his money, and that's basically it. I mean, the Family Responsibilities Office is there to administer a court order. The judge is there to make a ruling. The lawyers are there to get what they can for their client. Nobody is really considering at any stroke of the imagination what's in the best interest of the child. And I've been saying it for the longest time. But again, and I'll say this, the last time I went to court was 2012. And I said in the courtroom that day, I said, you will not see my face in this courtroom again. I'm not wasting 4 days of my life to deal with an issue like this. And it was an issue basically over, shared custody as far as I wanted shared custody, and which I won, and she wanted full custody. And I understand why she wanted it at the time. But again, as I said, listen, if we have an issue, we're going to Tim Hortons. And ever since that time, the mother of my two oldest children and I have been able to have conversations, a lot of which I just say, okay, go ahead and do. Right? I have a son with my ex-girlfriend, and when she wants to do something, whatever, I've said to her many times, you know what, hey, you want to do it, go ahead. Because if you fight, the collateral damage is too much. I will take that money that I would have spent to a lawyer and put it away for when my children need it. And that's kind of how I deal with it. I don't want to talk about, it's Father's Day. I don't want to talk about the court system. I want to talk about the things in life that we can do for our children. The court system will always be there, and it will always be a thorn in our sides. And we can talk till we're blue in the face about it. We can do whatever, or we can do what we're supposed to do and be fathers.
All right. Well, I like to especially thank Greg and Jonathan for talking about it on Father's Day, and I appreciate it's never an easy subject to deal with, but I think, or to express, but I think we have to be honest and real. It's part of the existence. So let's move on to some more sunnier conversation topics. I'm going to start off with Josh on this one. What is something that any one of your children has taught you that has made you a better person, better daddy, better man?
Since you asked that before the commercial break, I have been sitting here pondering which one has taught which lesson the best. Because I have 4, and each one taught me something different.
Well, go ahead.
Instead of trying to just narrow it down,
yeah, go for it.
I'm going to give you the overall thing. So my first lesson started with my bonus babies. So my bonus babies were able to teach me beforehand that my military way of parenting was not going to cut it. So they taught me that I had to be flexible. They taught me I had to be patient. They taught me that I had to show up for them how they needed me to and not how I wanted to. Baby girl, my oldest, taught me what love can overcome. Meaning, we have never had a real daddy-daughter connection, only because she wasn't in my custody or in my presence much until maybe last year when she moved in. And now we're booming, running, growing, all the good things. But she showed me that love can cover a multitude of sins, meaning that me loving her the way she needed me to caused her to flourish the way she wanted to. Baby girl, baby love, my 9-month-old was the restoration of my heart. She was the restoration of love. She was the restoration of me not knowing what I needed and then receiving what I needed to create a new thing. So each one of my babies have all taught me something generally different and amazing, but though that's what each one of them have shown me as far as overall parenting.
Thank you, Jonathan. Greg, who wants to follow up? And you can cover all of your children, 1 or 2, whatever. It's an open one for you.
I'll start with the baby. So Joshua, I actually have a son named Joshua. My son's name is Joshua. So
that's
Joshua's
a great name.
Yeah. Trust me. No, it is. We call him the Emperor, and for obvious reasons. Joshua has basically been the gadget guru in the house. I used to love gadgets. My son has taken over for me in that realm, and he is a gadget guy. So what he's been doing now is he goes on GarageBand and he starts making music. So he's actually taught his father, me, how to compose music on GarageBand. My middle child, Naima, she has taught me to be fearless. She has no fear. She does everything at 100. She does not back up. She does not capitulate. She just does everything at 100. So she's taught me how to be fearless, how to not be frightened of certain things, because she doesn't have a fear of anything. And my oldest child, wow. How to love unconditionally and how to accept something that you don't understand. and I'll go back to when she classified herself as a she. She came up to me. We were driving in the car one day, and she's like, "Daddy, I'm bi." And I'm like, "Bi what? What'd you buy?" "Oh, you mean bisexual? Okay, cool." And having to learn to deal with that. Then it was, I'm lesbian, and then from lesbian it changed to being transgender, and having to just deal with it, and having to just learn to love, and to learn to accept, and learn to kind of just allow him to flourish as a young boy, and to accept. I think that's the hardest thing that I had to do, is to I named him originally. I gave him his first name. I gave him his middle name. I had that name 12 years before he was born. And to know that now those two names that I named him are now his dead name, it was like a death. And I had to learn to accept that he is now a he, and to move on with that, and to love him in the same way that I did before, and to keep those avenues of conversation open, and just be there. I don't have to be daddy anymore. I don't have to be like, "Oh, did you fall? Did you whatever?" But just be daddy for when they would call me.
And Ryan is saying here, yes, good job, Jonathan. You're working through the transition.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan.
Greg.
Well, I mean, I think my girls over the years have taught me many, many things, all kinds of things about, what sacrifice looks like, how to overcome challenges, to deal with your own traumas. But I think the single biggest lesson that I've learned is how to embrace joy. Now, I really took pleasure, and I've done it with all three of them at different points when they were babies, to take them into my arm, put their head in my palm, and lay their body on my forearm, their limbs dangling, and dancing with them that way. I did it with all three of them at some point or another. And it's just to embrace that happy moment of spending that FaceTime with your baby girl. And that has been instructive over the years. And just in terms of, I have had to live through a lot of traumatic events. I've lived through, controversies. I've lived through a public shaming. I've lived through, an implosion of my career in a very public way, and, in a very slow, painful process to build myself back from that to where I'm at today. And through all of that, you can't allow yourself to lose hold of the joy. And so when I think about how do I stay positive, how do I stay focused on doing something happy, I think about having a baby in my arm that I'm laughing with and smiling with and dancing to some R&B song of some sort, and just enjoying that moment with them. And so that has been one of the keys to my resilience, is just to think of them that way, and to remember to keep smiling no matter what else is going on.
Good stuff. Thank you, gentlemen. Just want to read a note here from Ryan saying, my children had an article to respond to. I was caught by my surprise when they both answered the questions as follows. Who's my biggest inspiration in your life? Daddy, my daddy. Who do you look up to as an example? Daddy. This has taught me that my every action, though sometimes a difficult one, they are still looking for me as they are still looking at me for guidance, even when I tell them stories about myself that are difficult. Absolutely. Just a few more minutes, gentlemen. We'll let you go. I want to have each one of you share a challenging fatherhood moment and how you overcame it. would like to start on that one?
Oh, I can start. A challenging parenting moment of a more recent one was my my introduction to my partner's kids. And they, I think, still in the back of their mind, were still holding on to that childish dream that their mother would get back together with their father. That was definitely not going to happen. And then I showed up and started coming around more often. And so that process of breaking down the barriers, breaking down the hostility, to create a linkage, create a connection between myself and the kids, has been one of the more difficult roads, because I don't parent them per se. They have two parents, and I've been very clear with them from the very beginning that I'm not trying to replace their father. But as a responsible male in the house, I am definitely going to set the expectations in this space and expect them to be on board for that. And I told them, listen, I only have two rules in this house when you're living with me. Do as you're expected to do and be respectful. If you do those two things, we're going to be okay. And it took them a while. They didn't want to do the things they were supposed to do at first. They learned very quickly that the Jamaican man that they were now dealing with, not play that, right? So they got that straightened out real quick. And then the be respectful thing, which also was something that I took from my, my feisty 5-foot nut mother, is just the ability to just understand that if you treat people respectfully, if you treat people with kindness and with courtesy and with compassion, it will be returned to you. And life will be so much easier than if you try to fight them all the time. And eventually they started to get the message, and the relationship is much better now, to the point where I'm able to openly and tell them, listen, I love you very much. You kids are as important to me as anything else in this world. And I want to do right by you, and we've been able to really break down a lot of those barriers to get to a much better place, the place that we're at today.
Thanks for sharing that victory story. I appreciate that. Who wants to jump in next? Jonathan, challenging moment, and how did it impact your fatherhood journey? A challenging moment with any of your children?
John, do you want me to go ahead, or you got this, brother?
Yeah, you go first.
Got you. I shared one yesterday about getting up and having the altercation with my bonus baby. I think today's hardest moment I want to go different with. My oldest baby girl has been in some tough situations, including being the victim of sexual assault. And baby girl is now 8, and therapy and all the things are in place to get her back to 100%. But when her then stepbrother put her in a compromising position, I got a phone call from her mother to just kind of give me abreast of what was going on. And I instantly went into it's time to kill somebody mode. That's just me. I'm ready. So I was working at Verizon at the time. I called my crew. Hey, y'all, this was going on, man. Go handle your business, bro. We'll get you out of jail. Don't worry about it. Go. Cool. Before I could leave my house, I was living in Columbus, Georgia at the time, and the mother of my daughter was living in Miami. It's a 6-hour drive. Before I can get on the freeway, I got a phone call. Josh, don't come down here. Wait, what do you mean don't come down here? Nah, I know you're hot. I don't want you down here doing anything crazy. Just don't come. Okay, I guess. Got it. Cool. And having to build and support my daughter only through FaceTime on the phone at that time, instead of being able to hold her and tell her daddy's here and daddy got you, was rough. But the light of the tunnel of that was, even though it was just through the phone, she knew and felt she was supported, and even now understands If my daddy is not physically there, my daddy will find a way to let me feel support. So it was rough. I did not like the situation. I wish I could have handled it the way I wanted to, but it is what it is. I also understand now that because of my support during that period, it paid off in the long run. So it was rough, but we got through it.
Thank you for sharing that story. And another congratulations on the victory. We like to celebrate wins wherever we can. Thank you. Jonathan?
I'm going to break it up in two parts, if that's okay.
Sure.
Last year, around this time, I don't remember exactly when it was, but I know there was something going on. I got a call from my ex-wife, and she said that my oldest had talked about committing suicide, and they immediately, took her over to the hospital, and for monitoring and stuff like that, and they said okay, so I said okay. Immediately, I got into I got to be there, but again, it's COVID, so they said they're only allowed to have one visitor per shift or whatever. So okay, so she called me up and she says, well, okay, well, what we'll do is I'll take her in, or him in, sorry, and I'll only stay for half the time, and then you can spend half the time with him. And I thought, okay, no problem. Again, I live in Brampton, they're in Burlington. Went down there, was ready to, and then as I was going in, she was coming out, and the doctor said, you can't see your child. Everything inside me wanted to really rush the door, do something, because again, I've not missed an opportunity to be with my children. Whenever I'm asked to be there, I'm there. The only time I've ever not seen my children was Father's Day 2014, when I was in the hospital after being assaulted. Other than that, I've never missed an opportunity to be with my children, not for any reason whatsoever. And I had to come back the next day. And I came back the next day. So what we did was I went one day, his mom went the other day, I went the next day, and until finally he came out. And I didn't sleep that night. I woke up that morning. I prayed to God. I said, God, please don't let me break down. Please don't let me break down. And I drove all the way there. And he called me that night and said, just bring me some McDonald's. And I went and I brought him McDonald's. And when I hugged him, it was like the first time I'd ever hugged him since he was born. And that feeling, that emotion, everything, it was like I couldn't stop my eyes from crying. I couldn't hold it back in anymore. But he supported me. And I think in that moment of seeing me break down, he realized how much I loved him and how much he supported and how much everybody around him wants to see him win, whether it be as a man, as a woman, or whatever he chooses to be. But in that moment there, that was probably the most difficult parenting moment I ever had, because I wanted to hold it together, but nah, man, I love my child too much. And I don't know what I would do if I got a phone call and any of my 3 children were not here. I think you're on mute. You're on mute. Okay.
I put myself on mute because I was getting emotional during each one of these stories. And thank you. Thank you. Want to end off our conversation today, and I'd like each one of you to give a message to our audience, whatever it is, about Black fatherhood. To whoever, could be women, men, whatever. What is your message and your call to action when it comes to Black fatherhood?
So,
Go ahead, Greg.
yeah, I'll go ahead if you gentlemen don't mind. Listen, for me, I think that we sometimes get a little bit too caught up in what this idealized version of Black fatherhood is supposed to look like. The painted poster version of this, muscly, very attractive Black man holding a baby, saying Black fatherhood is amazing, and all of this kind of stuff. And we become tied up in this idealized impression of what it's supposed to look like. And that if you, as a Black person who happens to be male, who happens to have children, does not precisely fit this idealized vision of what Black fatherhood is supposed to look like, well, then you're doing it wrong. And so then we get into this kind of dichotomous, either you're doing it correctly or you're doing it incorrectly. And if you're doing it incorrectly, you need to check yourself. You need to do this, you need to do that, and suck it up and be better for the race and blah, 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 blah. I think what we need to do is take a step back and remember that we live as human beings within our own specific identities based upon our own sense of awareness, our own sense of our well-being, and our own socialization that we've experienced through life. And we have to take the man for what he is, take the man for where he is, and take the man for what he has gone through to reach the point that he's at in that place. Wrap our arms around that man as a community and ask him, how can we help you to achieve the ideal of Black fatherhood that you hold for yourself, to achieve the goals and ambitions and objectives that you have for yourself as a Black father? How can we give you the resources? How can we give you the support? How can we give you the encouragement and the love and pour that confidence into you that you may not have because of your own experience of being a child of a Black father? Like, what can we do to help you get to where you need to go and lose this attachment to the idealized version of what that looks like? Because no one lives ideally. And ideally, we should seek to help people to live.
Thank you, Greg. And if you want to get in touch with Greg, there in the screen is his IG, Greg_Frankson. That's FRANKSON. Thank you for those words, Greg. Really, really powerful. Who'd like to go next?
I'll go. Mine's going to be two-part. Number one, to my biological father, my dad. Dad, I love you. Dad, for the last 53 years of my life, I wanted to have a relationship with you that we could at least be friends or be friendly. You have shown me repeatedly that you don't want that. And I'm okay with that. I've asked you if you could be a grandfather to your grandchildren. You don't want that either. Okay, cool. I will be there to do for you as you need me to do. But as I said to you publicly and privately, as of August 4th, after you have your last COVID shot, I'm retiring from doing stuff for you. I cannot take the public embarrassment anymore. I cannot take the jabs anymore. I cannot take the jabs to my self-respect or to my self-esteem. You have another 5 living children. Please ask them to do for you. That doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form that I don't love you. I'm just retiring from doing things for you. For the fathers out there, I want to remind you of this. None of us got a handbook when we became fathers. But time heals all wounds. Your children at times will love you. Your children at times will be indifferent to you. Your children at times will want to explore the world for what it is on their own. I have lived to see my ex-wife text me and say Happy Father's Day and Happy Birthday, and do it with love. So time, as I said, heals all wounds. I have no animosity to any of my exes. I love them, and I hope they love me. I just love them differently now. The court system is the court system. Do what's in the best interest of your child. Emotionally remove yourself from the battle and move forward. That's it. Just be the best father you can. Tell your children every single day you love them. If you never heard it, like I did, through your life, don't worry about it. Say, I love you to your children every single day, to the point where they turn to you and say, Daddy, stop telling me that. I know that already. And that's all you need to hear. Because one day, your children are going to surprise you, like mine did, and tell their friends, and it's the greatest feeling in the world. My daddy's better than your daddy because, and they just go off. It's the greatest feeling. When you're in the audience and you get to see your children up on stage and you can say, that's mine. It's the greatest feeling in the world. Do not let anybody tell you you can't be a parent. Do not let anybody tell you you can't see your child. If there's a way, if there's a will, there's a way. If your child plays soccer and you know nothing about soccer, become a soccer coach. If your child lives in a whole different state or province or territory, go get a gas card, man. Trust me. Whatever you got to do. Our job is to provide. And that's all we need to do. One love.
Thank you, Jonathan, as always. And if you want to touch base with Jonathan, you can find him on IG at Jonathan O. Shaw. That's JONATHANO Shaw. We'll close up the conversation today with Josh.
Similar to what I said yesterday in another chat, right? You are exactly who you need to be to build and give your children the perfect lifestyle they need. Meaning, often we are told that we're not if we're not doing X, Y, and Z. When in reality, who you are in this season right now, imperfectly, creates perfect children. Your mishaps, your mistakes, your shortcomings, as long as you are being honest with yourself and your children, you will create perfect children. Your presence and intentionality are only what you need to focus on. Be real, be flawed, and allow your children to see and learn from the mistakes. And I promise you, you will create well-rounded, happy children because they know their Superman can make a mistake, so can they. All right? With that, I'm all about daddying, so if you need anything, any support, any help, please feel free to reach out to me. This is what I do. All right? With that, I'm complete.
Thank you, Joshua. Fantastic. And you can get a hold of him on IG at Melanated Daddy. Gentlemen, you hit it out of the park. I knew you would. Thank you so much for everything you have done, you are doing, and you will be doing when it comes to fatherhood, not only in your own lives, but in the lives of others. I'd like to thank each one of you for taking the time today on Father's Day to share the valleys, but also the mountaintops, because that's fatherhood. There's some valleys and there's mountaintops, but I'm hearing more from each one of you there are more and more mountaintops each day. So I appreciate it. Continued success.
Hey, gentlemen, happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, man.
All right. All right, everyone. It is Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given up by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And I host the only online broadcast in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central Canada's National Fatherhood Organization. Also, I am the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative, which is a multimedia not-for-profit that showcases Blacks in the diaspora that are doing all their stuff, doing everything in food, wine, and travel. Just some final comments here. Ryan Singh saying Black fatherhood is the biggest, most important job to having the next healthy generation of Black fathers and Black mothers. Cinnamon Canela from another one of my conversation. Happy Father's Day, gentlemen. Sarah saying incredible conversation, real, raw, thoughtful, and intensely emotional. Thank you for all your sharing your experiences and perspectives on fatherhood like that. And then Cinema Canela says, great advice. Thank you, Sarah, Cinema Canela, Ryan, and everyone else who watches live on the replay or who will be listening to this on the replay. It's appreciated, not taken for granted. So, like I always like to say when I close out, the best way to reach me is go to my website, thedrvibeshow.com. Final comments as always. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions that aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember to give yourselves grace. And that's especially to the fathers and the men who are caregivers, who are not biological or related fathers to the children, and also to the men out there that would like to be fathers, but for some reason, medical, emotional, can't be fathers. Each one of us is a father to somebody. So just don't think you have to have children biologically or bonus babies to be a father. It could be someone who's younger than you, same age as you, doesn't look like you, looks like you, older, younger, etc. They're a father. So God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith. Walk good. And remember, next week, 27th of June, scheduled our monthly roundtable with Sarah Yongo, L. Jones, Warren Clark, and Cesar Nadima Musa. Our roundtable once a month we have on Black Canada Talking. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith. And remember, walk good. Goodbye, everybody.